Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Hello, my name is Martin Loffers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. You may also know me as the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, our European quarterly, and also newsletter bi-weekly, and a huge website with a lot of content, checklists, maintenance, and you name it. Welcome to this live webinar. I have three excellent experts in this webinar. We are going to talk about end-to-end transport management, a hot topic, and how to transform your logistics during a global crisis. And so I have three experts, like I said. So I will introduce them right now. So let me check. Here I am on the left-hand side. That's me. You might have seen my picture. And second from the left is Rob Hazekamp. He's responsible for logistic and supply chain solutions within the Benelux at Oracle. Rob, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
And next, Dominic Regan, also from Oracle. He's Senior Director for Value Chain Execution. Dominic, welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here.
And finally, last but not least, Mark Jegers. He's Manager Global Transportation Management of RHI Magnesita. Mark, hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So welcome to you all, and welcome to all the listeners. Going to be a huge crowd, a lot of registrants. There's a lot of attention to end-to-end transport management, and there's a good reason for that. So basically, this webinar will be recorded. So we will make the presentation available as PDF within 48 hours, possibly 24 hours. So you can ask questions during the webinar. There will be a Q&A at the end, but you have also the opportunity to ask questions during our conversation with the three experts. And you see on the right-hand side of your screen, you see the chat, and that's not the purpose for Q&A. So you have a Q&A functionality, and you can ask a question. And if the questions are in line of the discussion we're having, I will make sure that I will start asking these questions right away. And but after the hour, we also have 30 minutes extra. We will be in this lounge. You can talk directly to the four of us. So we'll be sitting at table 1. And if you have more questions or you have more things to discuss, you can talk to the experts in this webinar directly. So feel free also afterwards to talk to us, and there's more opportunity to talk to us. All right. Why this topic? So we did a survey among manufacturing companies and retail companies in Europe just after the first wave of COVID at mid-2020. And basically what you're seeing right here in blue, overall respondents, what kind of investment are they planning for the next 12 months? So right now at this moment. So sales and operations planning is very hot. And number 2 is end-to-end supply chain visibility. And good to mention that the orange ones are the more advanced companies on a 1 to 5 scale, according to Gartner. The orange companies are more mature in supply chain, and they have other plans and other investment plans. So also transport planning is on top of their agenda, but also real-time transport visibility. Dominic, what do you see in the market? Because you're talking to a lot of companies looking for solutions.
Yeah, and again, I think what we're seeing in the marketplace, Martin, sort of reflects the survey you have here. So as you allude to here, companies who are looking for that end-to-end visibility, we often hear that sort of expressed in terms of things like a control tower across their supply chain. I think the areas around transportation planning and real-time visibility probably reflect the vulnerability that if you like, supply chains have been exposed to over the last 18 to 24 months. So companies really wanted to be able to get to grip with where their inventory is, where their shipments are. They've recognized that transportation is perhaps an area that they hadn't looked at quite so much in the past. And so it's been highlighted as an area where bringing more visibility, managing cost, controlling cost is something that really has sort of risen up the corporate agenda, if you like.
Yeah, and we also explain in this webinar also with RHIM as an example, a case study of how do you get this end-to-end supply chain visibility and what is the role of transport management in all this. So that's all connected. All right. Some of you might know our IT supply map. Supply chain media has developed in the last 10 years. So you see a lot of super lines reflecting all the different kind of systems: ERP, WMS, TMS, also real-time transport visibility, and you name it. We'll get to that later on. Basically, you know, there's a lot to choose from and to connect with to create end-to-end visibility. That's the core point I would make with this subway map. But also Oracle is in the center of it. You know, having acquired in the past quite a few systems. You see JD Edwards, G-Log, Dementra, but also they in the last 10 years they have put a lot of effort, money, and time to make these applications available for the cloud. So I think that Oracle was one of the early ones to make this all applications available in the cloud, and that resulting in quite a nice supply chain portfolio, I would say. So, Rob, could you explain what you are offering to the market in relation to all this?
Yes, I'm happy to do so, and also happy to kick off with this short introduction of our supply chain solutions. As you know, Oracle has a very strong focus on supply chain. We support an end-to-end connected business process, so from product innovation, product lifecycle management, procurement, through supply chain planning processes, manufacturing, maintenance, to our supply chain execution solutions. And all the applications are built for the cloud to support you with a future-ready platform. That's basically the thinking and the strategy. And this means that you can really benefit from emerging tech, like machine learning to create predictive analytics as an example. And today we will be focusing on the logistics area and transportation management in particular. And this is one of my personal favorite areas, and maybe good to highlight is to close the slide with is that all solutions are also ERP agnostic.
Okay, and then can you explain what are the benefits? Because you know, Oracle is quite open, but can you explain what the benefits are for companies?
Yes, I will. Agile transportation management, we think, is a key strategic driver for many of our customers. And the key to do this is, as I said, is the open and the flexible technology. And cloud is really fundamental in this. I will explain you how we organized and structured this, Martijn. In the middle of this slide, you can see our Oracle Transportation Management Cloud solution. It's called OTM. And this has been our market-leading application for almost 15 years now. It's validated by analysts, of course, but more important is that's also been recognized as leading by our customers. And in a nutshell, what does OTM do? It really supports global shippers by delivering a single instance of software that supports all modes of transport with an end-to-end transportation management process, covering all inbound and outbound shipments. And of course, it all starts with order management. And basically where the magic happens is that we bring advanced planning and optimization capability for both operational planning as well as technical planning to support kind of what if type of simulations requirements. And following this, we have, of course, the shipment execution, the booking of the transport, and in more important, also capturing all the events. During that monitor and event management, we close the loop with, of course, the finance processes such as settlement and cost allocation. Because all of this happens with a single instance, we can offer full visibility, event management, and including the business analytics to give you the insights on where to improve. And the good thing of the cloud strategy is that all our customers are working with the same cloud version, and this really helps in terms of connectivity.
Yep.
And as you know, Oracle is a data-driven company, and data is the fuel for innovation. And Oracle therefore invests a lot in emerging technologies to really drive new innovation areas. We can then plug these into OTM, and we have the capabilities such as chatbots for sharing track and trace information in a new way, as well as machine learning to improve and better predict the expected time of arrival of your shipments. And to close this slide, on the right, you can see our partner ecosystem we work with, and so partners like carrier marketplaces and connectivity providers. And customers really appreciate the flexibility to really select the most appropriate partner per mode, for example, or per region. So the flexibility and the innovation to be plugged in is really supporting that agile logistics.
All right, and we'll get to this point also with the other partners like the forecasts of this world, with the case of RHIM later on. Thank you for your explanation. And Dominic, over to you. So what is the reason supply chain is so attractive to invest in?
Oh, well, I think you only really have to look at, the events that we've seen over the last 18 to 24 months to maybe appreciate why supply chain is right at the top of not just of the boardroom agenda, but also the sort of media agenda these days. I mean, like you, Martin, I've been in the supply chain space for, probably 30 years now, the last 20 in the transportation area. And beginning of that, it was hard to sort of have a conversation in many cases with companies around the transportation area. It was seen as very, very much the sort of mucky end of supply chain. But to say what we've seen in the last couple of years is supply chain has moved right up the agenda. We read about it in the newspapers, we hear it on the news, and as consumers, we're very familiar with the problems that can be caused, when there's disruption in the supply chain. So I think all of those sort of things have sort of come together really to make transportation an area that many companies are focusing on. And I say it's perhaps one of those areas they didn't put quite so much focus on in the past. Now they're realizing that it's absolutely core to their value proposition. So they need to make sure they have that visibility. They need to make sure they understand what they're spending, who they're spending it with. Because if they don't get that right, it has such an impact on the rest of their supply chain.
Yeah, so consumers and the board of directors do know what a container is, and the shortage in containers, what it result into. Can you tell me what the impact on transportation and freight costs are?
Oh, yes, and again, that's something that really has come to the fore. I think anyone who is involved in the the booking of containers and paying the freight rates for containers, and not just containers, general cargo as well. But I say if you take the sort of container rates as an example, you look at some of the indexes out there, the cost over the last 18 to 24 months has risen by several 100%. And although it sort of started to stabilize, it looks like we're going to have that sort of high areas of transportation costs for some time to come. And of course, then companies are looking and realizing that in the space, in many cases of sort of less than 12 months, they've suddenly had to really go back and revisit their transportation budget. And when they've done that, of course, it puts the spotlight on the transportation area. They say they want to understand who they're spending their transportation dollars with. They want to understand if they're spending them in the most effective way. But they also, again, there's other factors that are influencing this focus on transportation. But I would absolutely say costs in general, transportation costs in particular, have really sort of led to that strong focus on transportation at the moment.
And the expectations are that these high costs won't go away. They
Exactly.
might be stabilized to some extent, but it's unimaginable that they will drop in the same amount like we've seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I think that reflects the fact that we're in this situation now where we're waiting to see what that sort of new normal is actually going to look like.
Yeah.
And then supply chains are going to have to evolve and adapt around that. And as you say, it's likely that the volatility of cost will be there for some time.
Yeah, right. So why are TMS systems so compelling in this day and age?
Yeah, again, I mean, cost is undoubtedly a factor.
Mm-hmm.
As say, it's if you think about the CFO, he or she will be looking at their balance sheet at the moment, trying to understand, why those transportation costs have gone out of kilter compared to the budget. But there's a lot of other elements that, if you like, also come into play when you look at transportation within many of the organizations that we work with. So, and you can see some of those here. Again, transportation perhaps is one of those functions within a business that can be distributed across the organization. You might have different factories or different lines of business that run transportation in their own particular way. And so companies thinking, well, okay, how can we consolidate that? How can we bring perhaps more standardization? Again, recognizing that different parts of the business do need to work in different ways, but actually, how can we sort of leverage the volume that we do to find more efficiencies? At the same time, say there's a lot of challenge around visibility. And if I think back to when I started in the transportation space 20 years ago, if you went to any conference, the talk was all about visibility. These days the conferences are virtual at the moment, but still people are looking for visibility. But it's if you like, that nature of that visibility has changed. Now it's much more about real-time visibility. Things like cargo monitoring are becoming much more apparent. So I say people want to have that visibility, and in line with that, they want to bring some things back under their control. Of course, other things like sustainability. A lot of the companies that we talk to in the heavy industries, perhaps areas like consumer goods, under a lot of pressure to measure their carbon footprint and find ways to reduce their carbon footprint. And again, I think when you look at the time that we're in, with many companies looking to perhaps sort of reset the way their supply chains are working, yes, it's about cost, but I say also about things around carbon and around compliance as well. So I think these type of things are really leading to a very, very active time from a transportation perspective. And then, of course, say companies building up huge amounts of data. I always say, within supply chain, the one thing we're not short of is data. But having got all that data, how can they drive more value from it? So whether that is doing things that sort of Rob alluded to, like the sort of machine learning to understand, come up with a better prediction of a time of arrival, or just to look at the flexibility that's needed within the supply chain and say, well, what if I did this? What if the customers I delivered to opened up their delivery times? Would that let me run a more efficient transportation operation from a cost or a carbon point of view? All these type of things are, say, really, driving what customers are trying to do with the data that they generate, within their supply chain and within their transportation.
Yeah, and what you see with a lot of manufacturing companies that have outsourced the transportation in this day and age for customer service, they want to be on top of them themselves. So they also, want to have their own TMS. They don't want to depend on what the 3PL company is they are using or able to provide. That's on one hand. So for the customer service sake, they want to have their own driver's seat with a TMS. And as of last fall, publicly traded companies in Europe are forced to show to the analyst their quarterly improvement in sustainability.
Yep.
If you don't have any figures, the Deloitte of this world cannot audit your processes and cannot explain that you have made improvements and where and how, etc. So sustainability will drive a lot of attention also in the sustainability areas towards TMS.
Exactly, and that's what I talk about here on this slide in terms of regaining control of your transportation data. I say companies aren't going to suddenly start insourcing everything. They're not going to build up their own fleet of assets and drivers. But what they do want to do is they want to have that data available. So they, and say they don't want to take that on a occasional basis. They want to have it almost in real time. Because as you say, they're being pushed by other stakeholders to be able to show their transportation data as part of their overall business. And so, you can't really do that if the data is not under your own control.
All right. Let's move over to Mark Jesus and talk about the real business case. So, Mark, can you introduce yourself briefly and also talk about, of course, next to your experience, about your company, RHI Magnesita?
Yes, thanks, Martijn. So, short introduction. Mark Jegers, I'm a global transport manager at RHI Magnesita, based in Rotterdam. And in my current role, I am responsible for the global logistics transformation project. That's a multi-year project that we kicked off about 2 years ago in our company. With the goal to completely upgrade the way that we manage our transportation and logistics activities throughout the world.
And something about yourself. I see an interesting resume, but you also, the co-founder of a procurement software. So you have both legs in the software world, but also in the supply chain
Yeah,
world, I would say.
I would say I have a wide interest of things. So my background is mostly in logistics, transportation, but also technology. So I like to have that combination of functional areas combined in the activities that I do, because I truly believe that with technology and logistics, we can still make a big move in our company, especially in RHI Magnesita. You will see that in the next points that we're going to
Yep.
look into. That we believe that with having the right technology, we can bring our company to a much more mature level and also handle the challenges that we have in our industry at a much better way.
All right. No, I think that the hybrid or the broad range of your background will be reflected in the slides next to come. Can you explain a bit more what RHIM is doing and what is called refractories? What are they?
Yes. I think that with exception of one or two of the people I saw in the audience from Tata Steel, probably nobody knows what a refractory is. So it might be good to have a little bit of a background on that.
Mhm.
So RHI Magnesita is an Austrian company. It's formed, I think, in 2017 out of a merger of the Austrian RHI company with the Brazilian Magnesita company, and that formed then the world leader in the refractory business. And what refractories are, I try to explain it like I would explain it to my grandma a little bit. We create bricks that are used to protect high heat manufacturing processes in, for instance, steel industry or glass or aluminium industry. So, for instance, if you have steel furnaces, those are lined with the refractory bricks to
Mhm.
make sure that those high heat processes can be safely conducted.
Okay. And you see some examples where these bricks are applied by your customers, I think.
Yes, so I think we serve, I believe that one of our salespeople said that about 95% of the global steel companies in the world. Many of the cement industries and glass industries also use our products in some way or form.
Okay, right. And how big is your company?
Well, as I said, we are a global company. We're located in over 125. Oh no, we actually ship to over 125 countries. But globally, we have over 28 manufacturing locations, but we also have many warehouses. We have our own raw material mines in various locations around the world. Yeah, and of course, we have a lot of suppliers and customers across the world. So we operate in a very complex logistics environment. A majority of our products actually ship across the various regions. So we produce in China and ship across the whole world, and also in Brazil we ship across the whole world. So yes, in the current, let's say, challenging logistics environment that also Dominic spoke about, it is very important that we get control over what we're doing, because freight costs are getting out of control, but also our customers are in demand of on-time deliveries, of course, and in the current environment that becomes more and more challenging. So that's also the reason why when we started this project, there was no COVID, there was no supply chain crisis as we see today. So it's all coming all nicely together in the same moment at this point. But The good thing is that we are high on the radar of our CEO because he sees the true value of what we're doing at this moment.
Tell me more. Tell me about the journey, where it all started, and what the initial goals were.
Yes. So when we started this journey about two and a half years ago, I came new to the company, also with experience more out of consumer business, and we were first tasked with, as part of one of our global transformation initiatives, tasked to transform the way that we manage transportation. So our goal was make sure that we have a mature global transportation management environment through which we can offer the best possible service to our customers and internal company. So when we started, we first did an assessment to see, okay, where do we actually stand in a maturity, from a maturity perspective in our logistics. And we had to conclude that we were doing a good job, but we're not very mature at that point yet. So, and that meant for us that we did not have a fully mature transport management system and other technology related to that. A lot of our processes are not standardized, and there was also a lack of true compliance throughout the organization. So what we did is we started to define our ambition from where we are at the starting point to where we want to go to. With that, we want to move from actually through a kind of a cycle of getting to transport operational excellence to a service excellence type of environment over the course of this project.
So you from the first red dot on the lower hand of slide, you want to go up to the higher end slide.
Yes. So basically, the red dotted line between those two dots forms our strategy, and says that we want to mature in a couple of levels. And I think that in one of the next slides, I can tell a little bit more about what we all are going to tackle in this transformation.
But before we get to that level where you are and what you're heading into, how did it all start? Can you tell me about the beginning of this project?
Yes, it actually started with the opening of the global supply chain office in Rotterdam. That's where we have about 100 to 120, I believe, supply chain experts from various supply chain areas together. And with that group in all the functional areas, we are tasked to make sure that we lead and improve our global supply chain activities and logistics activities there. So in 2019, when I came to the company, we kicked off with a global supply chain transformation program, which consisted of 6 initiatives. And one of those initiatives was the modernization and transformation of our global transport organization. So we went already through quite a journey before we actually started with the implementation. So we first went through a full global assessment workshop. So we visited all our regions across the world and started to understand where do we stand, how do they organize their logistics, what are the challenges and the issues that they're facing. And out of that, we started to define our scope and create our business cases. Parallel to that, we also already started to talk to our technology vendors. So we had selected TMS vendors, we had selected visibility partners, various technology vendors that we believed would be interesting for us to talk to. And then out of that process, which I will detail later a little bit further, we came in the end to a business case that went through an approval process in our company and was termed as a strategic project by our executive management team and our investment board. And in September 2020, we kicked off, actually almost at the same time as the start of COVID. So that was a good start.
Yeah, right. And we'll get to the vendor selection later on. But how do you describe in general your TMS project?
Well, the thing is that we, from the very start, made it clear that just a technology replacement would not be enough for us, because you can put in a new piece of technology, but if you do not at the same time work at upgrades of your processes, your organization, and your strategies around that, it becomes a pretty, let's say, meaningless exercise, because you're more or less putting the same, let's say, bad processes, bad organization, and bad strategies into a new piece of technology, and you never get the benefit out of it that you can get if you look at all these things at the same time. So for us, we had defined for our TMS project, and what the official name of the project was there, and it's maybe a little bit limited in its project name, but it encompasses an enormous amount of different areas that we tackle at the same time. So technology for us is like the ground floor of our project. So that's what we base everything on to make sure we come to a world-class technology support system for our company.
Mhm.
And then while we are implementing this process, this technology, we are improving our processes, harmonizing those across the world, simplifying them as well. We are also working towards a better organization structure. So we're building an internal transport control tower organization. And on top of that, we are also working with, for instance, our purchasing teams and the various sales teams on more strategy-based transportation management. So all these things come together over the course of periods 2 to 3 years, through which we are globally rolling this whole project out.
There's a lot of talking about change management and the importance of change management. How do you explain what change management has taken place, and how do you address this need to change?
Yeah, I think that change management is probably one of the most important things in a large project as such. Just to give you a couple of examples. So I am from the very beginning very enthusiastic about the approach that we're taking, of course, and I see let's say the future picture and the future red dot in the top right corner of our quadrant there. But not everybody sees that in a company. People have their own worlds that they're acting in. They have different agendas. They might not be, let's say, seeing the benefits of what we're bringing. So in our process, we have also in our project groups change managers there who work very closely with all the stakeholders in the project to show them what the benefits are. So one of the slides, I think, shows you also a nice overview of what does this bring for instance, customer service people or for our finance team. So everybody has a little bit of benefit from this. But the thing is that if you just, let's say, single-mindedly try to drive through such a huge project and try to drive through this technology change without taking into account that this has huge impact for a lot of people, and without doing any change management there, you will fail. And that is why we have from the very beginning made sure that change management is an integral part of our project.
So change management also means the assessment of the readiness of all the people involved.
Yes, and where we see that there is not readiness available is that we see, okay, how can we say work with the people that towards that they are say understanding where we want to go to, and also adopt to the changes that are coming.
And so you have to also create a picture, a story of the future, and you have to explain what this future will mean for all the individuals and their work.
Absolutely. So what we try to do in this is that we paint a big picture of the future, what the future will look like. But we also realize that not everybody might see, let's say, what we call that dream of where our future state will be, because it might be too far from their current situation or other reasons why they do not see it. So what we try to do in this what we call journey of going into a mature organization is that we try to paint the picture in smaller steps. So also the project is broken up into multiple phases. So we focus, for instance, on smaller areas that we implement, smaller groups of people that we involve, and make clear for those, let's say, smaller groups of people what it is going to mean for them. So slowly but surely we take them along the path of our journey from the left bottom dot to the top right dot. And try to slowly but surely start to show them what the improvements are, how their world is going to be more interesting and better.
Yeah. Although it might not be a pure technology project, you need the technology, so you had to select a vendor. Can you explain how you selected the vendor to to get to this?
Yes, we took an approach where we were trying to combine a couple of things. What we did is that we said, okay, technology, the functions of the system are for us, of course, very important. So we wanted to work with one of the leading companies in this field, but also for us, what was important is the partnership around that. And because this is not, let's say, you don't select this type of technology for a 2-year period. You're really looking at longer term relationships with the company. So you're looking at how do they see their future and how can we, let's say, benefit from their developments over time as well. But we were also looking at what implementation partners can they bring to the table that support us in the development that we have. And we looked, of course, also at the people from the vendor of Oracle in this case that were on the table, and do we actually feel that we can work with them in the way that we believe would be the right way. So the approach that we took is that we brought Oracle with their suggested implementation partner to the table for a 2-day on-site workshop in our company.
Mm-hmm.
And from our internal company, we invited people from, let's say, all the stakeholder functional areas that we believe had something to do with TMS. So we had people from finance, from IT, from logistics, from purchasing, all kinds of different, let's say, stakeholders that would be part of this. And during the workshop, we had asked both Oracle and their implementation partner to take us through the system in a kind of interactive demo with us, based on use cases that we provided to them. And Oracle and implementation partner, in this case, Flow Group, have taken 2 days with all the stakeholders to talk us through how the system works, what the benefits are. We could ask questions, and each of these individual stakeholders would have this tool that you see on the screen, in which they could assess their own or give their own assessment of the various categories that we had listed there.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, we brought it all together as a blended scorecard for Oracle, in which they came out as one of the leading parties there. And we've done this exercise with the short list of partners that we had found. So there was Oracle and JDA at that time, and SAP, at the time. And out of those 3, in the end, we have selected Oracle. But this was for us very important that we had stakeholder involvement in the selection process.
Rob, maybe you can comment on this because you were on the other side of the table, I would say. Is it quite common because you probably get a lot of invitation with RFQs?
Yes, we receive. You see in the market basically 2 RFQs. The classic ones with just here is an XLS with our requirements, and then yes, no, and maybe some small comments. But there's always a functionality behind a functionality, also depending on the maturity level of a customer. But what we really liked in this approach is that it was 3 days on the road, the workshops, but really thinking and sharing thoughts on how could the real solution setup look like for this company, and how could we address the functionality itself, but also how can we cook this into a clever implementation plan, and that really secures also the value in a very short time frame. So it was very nice working with each other, and besides the technology, it's also, of course, a partnership and a cooperation. So building trust within the teams and finding the right spirit is also fueling a project.
I can imagine, on one thing, it's get a clear picture about the scope of the whole project on one hand, but also the involvement of all the stakeholders, like Mark has said. That is also important for the vendor, I would guess.
Yes, it's good to see, and normally it's controlled by the logistics department, but there's always a customer behind the logistics process. So customer service and procurement, logistics procurement is great to have them all on board. And stakeholder management is always an important aspect. Yeah.
All right, Mark, can you explain briefly about the architectural landscape? It might be IT techy, but it might be interesting to explain.
Yes, so we've this is a bit of the simplified version that we have here, but how we approach is that we see Oracle in this case as our core transportation management platform, which is connected to our SAP ERP system. So out of ERP, we get all our order information, which we then do the planning of in Oracle, and we send the information back to ERP. Why we were interested in Oracle is that we saw that we could use Oracle as, let's say, our central transport management system, but connected then to a number of plugin platforms. So while we were selecting Oracle, we also were at the same time at the parallel looking into visibility partners and collaboration partners.
Mhm.
So out of that selection process, we selected FourKites for our land freight and air freight visibility activities, and we selected Intra for the connectivity and also the visibility with our ocean freight partners there. So that gives us a nice plugin through which we have, let's say, all the functionality through which we can control end-to-end our transportation activities. And then what we have done on the right side, because we also looked into what would be out of the TMS platform in the end, also data consumers, is that we also see that the data that we generate in Oracle is also interesting in the future to connect to, for instance, our RHIM customer portal, which is under development. So that through that portal, we can give direct access to customers through visibility information, order status, and things like that.
Mhm.
But also what is very important for us is that we have the extreme amount of data that we get out of all these combined platforms into a data warehouse, which we can connect to what is our business intelligence tools and give deep insights into what we're doing.
And maybe in the next slide you can explain, the title of this webinar is end-to-end transport management. So can you explain what a closed loop end-to-end transport management look like and how the other applications fill in this part?
Yes, absolutely. So this is a bit of an, let's say, a deeper layer of the architecture that you just saw. So on the left side, what we selected Oracle for is what we call our core TMS functionality stack, and through that. What we do is we can start there with order optimization. So we get our orders from our ERP system. In Oracle, we do the order optimization. There we also do the load and route optimization and do the carrier assignment there. And also load tendering and time slot management is all included in the functionality that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the connectivity to FourKites and Intra, we also get a lot of event notifications. So, for instance, through FourKites, we can follow if the truck is there on time for instance, for a time slot management pickup appointment. So, if we have booked a carrier at 10 o'clock for a pickup, through FourKites information, we can see if that carrier can make that time slot, yes or no, and be notified on the workbenches in Oracle. But of course, also we want to make sure that we have our financial, say, settlement at the end covered there. So with the information out of Oracle, we have an invoice management and self-billing process in place. And then out of that, we bring all the information into our business intelligence and data mining infrastructure, where we can do nice and smart things with that information. And we can also use that information and again to feed our strategic sourcing and rate management activities. And of course, I missed that already, but the spot buying is also included there. And in the middle, we have that control tower collaboration part there. And the reason why we have that in there is because all our transport people in the end will work through the Oracle system, so that there's no, let's say, they don't use the interfaces of FourKites and Intra directly, but use the data that we consume out of those platforms in Oracle. And the vendor connection on the right side that we have, there we have the open, let's say, plugin environment that Oracle gives us to bring our current selected vendors Intra and FourKites to there. But in the future, we could maybe add more and more companies to it. For instance, we can also look at maybe some direct connectivity with partners like Xeneta or something like that, or Uber Freight. That could also be possible. So this is the setup.
Do you already see the benefits? We discuss the rising freight cost. that you have already the benefits that you have made other decisions based on what you have implemented already here?
No, not at well. The reason why I say no is because we are still in implementation stage. So we rolled out China in December last year. So we're at a very early stage of rollout. What we do see that, and that's more the conceptual part, is that we do see is that if we start, well, let's say if we would have had this system fully up and running in the previous year, we could have done a lot of optimizations and already have probably avoided a lot of the problems that we had in the past year because of the better visibility, the more proactive response we could take based on that. So we do see the value of what we're doing, but we have not experienced it yet in the practice because it's still under the implementation at this moment.
All right. So maybe you can explain the different kind of objectives and also in which order you want to reach these objectives.
Yes, so the order is interesting because we want everything at the same time, but we prioritize, of course, a little bit. So one of the main objectives is that we want to have full end-to-end transport management control. So that means that, especially with our complex global infrastructure that we have. So when we send containers from Europe to North America, for instance, we want to make sure that the transport teams on both sides of the ocean have full understanding of what's going on. So in the North American control tower unit, they need to know that in Europe already containers are planned and are on their way to America, when they will be there and what they need to do with that. So that is for us very important, and we also want to make sure that we do that based on KPI driven data, so that we can have a much better control over our carrier base, but also over our internal processes there. What's also very important is that we want to make sure that we have a very clear orchestration collaboration. So not only internally between the different transport teams around the world, but also externally with our transport partners there. And we want to make sure that we have strategies in place, that we have clear understanding for everybody how we want to work together in the future. Now, strategy for us is going to be a very key part. So the thing is that if you have these strategies, you also need to have a platform to run those strategies on. And with TMS in place, we believe that we have a much better way to govern the strategies that we're setting up. So we can control better who we give the freight to, at what cost we give it, what would be the best way of moving stuff from A to B. Things like Dominic also alluded to, CO2 footprint is going to be a sustainability is going to be a huge topic in our industry in the next 5 to 10 years. So all that will be incorporated in strategies and monitored through the systems. And then last, of course, not least, financial operational performance. We want to be in control of our money and the service that we deliver. So in end, it's all at the same time, but we try to prioritize a little bit.
Right. And so to what extent have you defined the benefits for all the stakeholders?
Yeah, so what we've done is we created a stakeholder benefit map here, which is a bit of an extract there. In the end, through having these better end-to-end process and tools in place, we believe that for the whole end-to-end stakeholder map that we have here, we have some benefits for everybody. So I will not go into the details here, but what we saw with this project, we can actually deliver better services and information for both our customer service teams and of course, at the end also for our customers. The world for our transport planners is going to be much better because they have finally then the tools and the means to control their transport. Our dispatch teams will be much more, happy because it's easier for them to control their business. They know better what is coming their way, when a carrier is going to show up to pick up something or is going to be delayed. Our transport purchasing teams are going to be much happier because all the data that we get out of that, they can use for strategic tendering and modeling, etc., etc. Well, invoice management, we get much better control of our invoice process. The invoice process also really simplified in a huge way compared to how we do it today. And last but not least, we also believe that there is benefits actually for our service providers because at this moment there is a lot of, let's say, manual interaction with them, and we try to go to a much more electronic way of communicating with them. So less, manual interaction for their side as well, so they can be more efficient from their perspective.
I can imagine if you show this kind of slide to the board of directors within your company, they will see that the whole matter of transport management has been elevated to a strategic level, also for the business side.
Yes, exactly, and that's also why. The good thing is that our executive management team saw this at a very early stage already, and that's also why they have pronounced that this project is a strategic project, which means that they really are committed to make sure that we get this completed, and that we also get the funding and the resources for this to make this happen.
Yeah, maybe you can show a brief example of how a workbench look like, and how you can use it, especially in the terminal of ocean freight transportation.
Yeah. So one of the things where and we have a couple of game changers, what we call in our system build up that we have is. Especially last year, of course, and also this year with the terminal and ocean freight, one of the things that we're seeing quite a lot is demurrage and detention on our containers, and it's a huge cost effect for us, a negative cost effect for us. So within Oracle, what we decided to do is to create what we call demurrage and detention workbench. So this is what you see here is a workbench that Oracle has, which we have completely customized. And here you see the power of combining the tracking visibility data, in this case from Intra, with the power of the Oracle calculation engine. So what we do here is that we get tracking data for each and all of our containers out of Intra into Oracle. And Oracle, based on the rate agreements with our carriers on detention free days, demurrage free days, calculates if a container, when it has arrived on a terminal, is still within its 3 days, or if it's already starting to collect demurrage, and what that cost is then. So this gives our transport teams a huge benefit in already proactively trying to see, okay, I see this container only has 1 free day. Let's start moving it to either a lower cost storage facility, or make sure we bring it to the final location where we can destuff it. So this type of information shows already, and this is let's say in a pilot version live already, is where we can see the benefits of having visibility and TMS connected in controlling our cost and our services.
Interesting. Rob, quick question to you. Is it quite common that you get this kind of request to create this kind of workbench?
No, the workbenches are always an important thing, also for the pen engine. But the answer is yes. But I really like this new this new setup, not using only the tracking events for event management and tracking the progress of the shipments, but really triggering the right self-billing finance process. So automatic self-billing process this triggers. So this is an excellent idea, and innovation is also coming from our customers, of course.
Yeah, right. Mark, talking about visibility, you mentioned already, but can you explain a bit more about the benefits of visibility?
Yes. So one thing is, and this comes back to how we interact with our customers at the moment versus how it will be in the future. So at this moment, we are still in a pretty reactive stage. So most of the, let's say, questions about where's my container, friends, or where's my truck, are initiated by our customers. So they call our customer service teams, who then in turn have to check with the transport planners, who might have to check with the forwarder, and they might have to check with the subcontractor and the driver. Either a whole chain of let's say questions and answers going back and forth before you have that information. Where we want to go to is to a more proactive and automated approach here. So again, with the combination of the visibility tools and TMS, we are able now, through the GPS data, for instance, we get through ForeKites, to put on our workbenches in TMS already notifications about if a truck is going to be on time or it's going to be late. And that information is also available for our customer service teams there, who then either, well, maybe already proactively can call a customer and say, hey, that urgent truck that you were looking for, don't worry, it will be there in 30 minutes. So instead of the customer having to ask for information, we start providing information. And this is a process which is a little bit, let's say, inspired more by the business to consumer way of working, that we also want to bring this into the business to business environment. And through the course of the rollout of this project, our customers will become more and more exposed to this type of information flow.
So I can also imagine that you will might implement bots to have a communication to your B2B customers.
Yes, absolutely, and that was also one of the reasons why in the workshop that we talked about earlier, the selection workshop, when we spoke with the Oracle team, Rob at that moment also indicated about developments that they're having on the side of bots and artificial intelligence, things like that. So what we want to do here is one of those things that Oracle is heavily investing in bots, for instance, is that instead of having a CSR that needs to go, let's say, to a workbench and look up the information, they could in the future, when we also are implementing these bots, actually with their mobile phone access that information and say, okay, let me quickly check for customer X what's happening with their order. Is the truck already there? And maybe even in the further future, and again, this is a little bit a dream that we're going to, that we even give that information that way directly to customer access. Okay. So that combination of technology, innovation, and data is for us really powerful to bring a concept to the market where we can really make our customers as happy as we can.
All right. We're getting at the near end of our webinar, so to the audience, feel free to ask questions. There will be Q&A right after this. But now, first, Mark, can you explain where you are at this moment and what the next levels and phases will be?
Yeah, so this is a slide that gives a little bit of an, let's say, a derivative view of what we're doing with the TMS project, because having control over how we manage our transportation is one, but a very important part is also the data that we derive out of this. And we are, I will take you to this slide because there's a lot of information on it and a lot of layers. So if you look at the top section with the big 4 bars, so how we identify ourselves to be right now, and it's what we call pre-TMS, is that we have a very basic information, a level of information availability. So we have some information, but it's not at a very advanced stage yet. So during our phase 2 and our phase 3 further rollout of the TMS, we believe we can go to a much more structured environment, an optimized environment, whereby in the first place we want to be able, through the data, to be able to answer, okay, what happened, what did we do with our logistics flows, and then go to a level that we can also analyze much more, why did certain things happen. And then in the 4th phase, where we really go to the advanced level, is where we want to work closer with, further with Oracle, for instance, in introducing more artificial intelligence, machine learning type of things. So if we can even go to a further predictive environment, so that we can already, out of the historical data and let's say the trends that we are collecting from the market, see how we can best organize our logistics things. That also has an effect on how our, say, people are working on the transport side, because right now they are still in a let's say, classic transportation planning functionality. But over time, we see them also develop with the role of the TMS and the maturity of the data to become much more transport orchestrators, and at the end, much more working towards analysis and solution improvement all the time. So their roles are also going to evolve with this project.
And at the moment, I reckon that you are at phase 2 in 4 regions.
Yes.
You're focusing on a lot of land freight now. And what is your estimation to when you are getting into phase 3?
Yeah, so we are, this project is about 2.5 to 3 years in its, let's say, total, let's say, rollout for the globe. So we believe that around end of 2023, the middle of 2024, we can already start going into a first stage of a phase 4 activity.
Okay, and then you get also to the area where you have predictive ETAs and that kind of stuff.
Yes, and I think that's probably already a little bit earlier even, but then we are really going to use that to a further extent, and not only say inform our customers about that, but then also start using those ETAs to do, let's say, alternative routing or things like that.
Okay. So we're getting to the end. Like I said, what Rob already mentioned, a lot of companies, well-known companies, have been using and are using Oracle Transport Management application. And you see already a lot of well-known names here. I won't go through them all. Then, Q&A, yeah, we are on the hour, so I would suggest if you want to talk further with us right after this, we have 30 minutes extra, and you can talk to us directly. So I would suggest that. Otherwise, we would extend this webinar too much. So basically, right after this, within a few minutes, we will be sitting at table 1, the 4 of us. So I will invite you all to join. And you can talk to us all directly, and even in a private matter. And if we are a lot of people, we split up. So you can do right after this. Next, there's a lot of things more to do and to read. So we have created a mind map about the perfect delivery with Oracle. It's available online. It has been published in our magazines, and you can download it there. And on the right-hand side, there's also a handbook of modern supply chain management, covering all kind of cases based on implementations of Oracle. With that, for now, I would like to thank you all for listening, and I would like to thank Rob for your expertise. Rob, thank you.
Yeah, thank you as well. Yeah.
And Dominic, also thank you for your explanation and expertise.
No, thank you. My pleasure.
And Mark, especially you, I'd like to thank you for your openness and your clarification of this interesting journey.
Thanks, Gilbert. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, likewise. And so again, we will make this presentation available as PDF within 24 hours. And also the recording will be made available, and you can read more about it. Thank you for listening. And, I think it's a very insightful webinar. Thank you for this. There will be another webinar on a Wednesday in 2 weeks' time. But for now, thank you for listening in. And maybe you will join us in the lounge after this. And there is more availability to talk to us directly in a kind of Zoom meeting in the lounge. So please join us. And if not, thank you for listening. And maybe I will see you in the next time. Thank you, and bye-bye.